You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
An all-new season of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Mom talk has just been blowing up.
Whitney and Jen are on Dancing with the Stars.
Taylor is a bachelorette.
Saying that out loud is crazy. Like, that is huge.
But all the cool opportunities could pull us apart.
It's causing issues in everyone's marriage.
My whole world is falling apart right now. It's chaos.
Watch the Hulu original series, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Thank you so much.
Join our Patreon for extra episodes, interviews, extra content, and to help support the podcast and help us continue to do the work we do.
Go to patreon.com/ancienthistoryfangirl to learn more.
I would like to be a wolf, like wandering around being all wolfy.
I'm Jenny Williamson.
And I'm Jen McMenemy.
And this is Ancient History Fangirl.
We are, in fact, thrilled to welcome Nalini Singh to the podcast. Nalini is the romance novelist. She has been brought up over and over again this year in our book club as the one author you must read. Like, I can't even count the amount of authors who've said that. She's an internationally best-selling author with over 36 books across numerous genres. Nalini Singh is the master of romance and fiction, and we are over the moon to welcome her to this podcast. Welcome, Nalini.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, I'm looking forward to the discussion.
So, this is a question we ask everybody. And we were just discussing this right before we hit record about how far back Nalini's career goes. Can you tell us your smutty origin story? How did you get started in romance?
How did I get started in romance? So I found romance novels, I want to say when I was like around 13, 14, which seems to be the case for a lot of authors I know. We sort of fall into it. There were a few sort of outliers who were like, I found my mother's collection when I was 11. And we're like, oh, you found it at 11? Yeah, before that, I mostly read fantasy and you know, all those, the kiddie books and I read, you know, all those mystery adventure books like Nancy Drew and Sweet Valley and then, you know, graduated to the bigger fantasy books. And then I have an aunt and she's really into romance books as well. And I had already kind of started to find romance in the library and I went to visit her and she gave me this whole bag of Mills and Boon romance novels. And I brought it back on the plane and I was so excited and I read them all and I was like, wow, what is this thing? You know, because I think the emotional punch of romance is not something you find in any other genre to that extent. And particularly, I know the category romances get a lot of stick, but they're really, really good at condensing a full emotional arc into a very short format. And I tell romance writers, if you're writing romance, you know, try and write a category first because it teaches you to distill everything. You don't have room for fluff, right? Everything's got to be in this very tight format. So anyway, I read this whole thing and I was like, wow, I love it. So I found romance, but I also really always loved, you know, fantasy. And so when I started writing, one of the first things I wrote was actually looking back. It was like a paranormal romance, but I didn't know that was a thing. Then I didn't know you could sort of combine all these things. And I just, I started writing books actually in high school and making my friends read them. And I'd be like, what do you think? What's your feedback? And they're like, it's good, I guess. Like some of them were not big readers, but they read it because of me.
When you say a category romance, what do you mean by that?
Oh, so category romance is, I guess it's not as visible now because, you know, the industry has changed, but it's like the Mills and Boon and the silhouette romances, the various lines. They used to have, I'm not sure, because I'm in New Zealand, so I'm not sure what the situation is in the UK and the US now, but they always used to have like a display in the bookshops and the big box stores. And every month, new books come in and people could and can still subscribe. So every month they get the new books come in, the category books. And it has played a huge role in the romance industry because so many writers started in category romance that you wouldn't even know. You're probably reading many authors who came out of category because, like I said, it's a great place to learn your craft and be really, really good at it. And also, back before self-publishing, so this is how old I am. I'm in the olden days. Back before electronic publishing, any of that, category was one of the places where they would take a shot on a lot of newer writers. And they were quite wide-ranging in terms of who they would take. So a number of bigger publishers, sort of wanted the book set in certain places, like set in England or set in America. And if you're outside those countries and you don't know it, it's really difficult to do those settings. Particularly when the internet was not what it is now, where you can research down to the minutest detail something. And so a category, they would take settings from all around the world. So it's really fantastic. I remember reading books set in little islands and set in like South Africa, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, it has played a big role in the industry. I think it's changing now, obviously, because a lot of that same market in terms of readership has probably gone online, is reading books, through various subscriptions, or just prefer to buy their books electronically, and there's a lot more choice. It's not like before when what was printed was all the choice there was. It's such a massive area. But I actually did start in category as well. So I wrote 6 category romances for Silhouette Desire in New York before I wrote my first paranormal.
I had no idea. That's amazing. So, okay, so how did that happen? So we were we were at the point where you were showing your friends your romance novels in high school. I have to know, what were your romance novels like when you were writing them as you were in high school, right?
Yeah, so I thought I was brilliant, as you do when you're a teenager. And I actually think it's perfect. Everyone should start submitting or trying to publish when they're a teenager, because you're completely confident, no idea what you're doing, but you think you're brilliant. So what I did was, I think, the year after I finished high school, I had a gap between, starting uni and finishing high school. So I wrote this book and I submitted it to various publishers. And the heroine had a broken leg in it, and it was very sort of prototype romance. She's gone to an island and there's this mysterious man there, and, there's going to be all kinds of drama happening. But anyway, the title was And a Broken Heart Too. She had a broken leg.
Oh, yeah.
But I sort of joke about it now, but I'm really, really proud of that book and the person I was, because I submitted it. Not only did I finish an entire book, I wrote it, I submitted it. And then I got this rejection letter, which wasn't even a letter. It was like one of those compliment slips, like the really, so it's not even half a page. It's like, I still have it. But by then I'd already started writing my second book. And I was like, well, if they don't like that one, I've got something better for them. And so I was a little bit obsessed, honestly. And I just kept submitting until I sold my very first book, which was called Desert Warrior.
I think I've read Desert Warrior. I think that was like the first book that I read of yours in my mom's library. My mom ran the library in my hometown in Heartland, and she had a lot of smut in said library, and it was just my favorite thing.
Yeah, no, it's I love that book still. And the funny thing is, when I go back and I look at it, so I created a country in it, first of all. So it's contemporary, but I created a country. And then when I go in, there's all these references to the heroes' movements being like a panther. And so I was like, obviously, I was meant to write shapeshifters from the start.
Obviously. You write across so many different genres, romance, paranormal romance, mystery, contemporary, science fiction, crime. What is your secret to juggling all of these different genres? And are there any genres that you haven't written in yet that you want to try?
So I guess it does feel like I write across all these genres, but I've been around, like we were talking before we started recording, for a long time. So I've had a long career in the industry. And so in most cases, I've actually done them like sequentially, not at the same time. So I went from category, and I was always writing paranormal sort of science fiction-y stuff in the background, but I just happened to get published in contemporary first. And then I did the paranormals, and urban fantasy was quite an easy transition as well, because I think it's all on a bit of a continuum. Paranormal romance and urban fantasy, science fiction, all that kind of stuff. It's all on a continuum and how much you lean on one side or the other. The big change was when I started trying to write straight thrillers or mysteries without romance. My very first one, it is a bit of a transition book because it does have a slight romance in it. Very slight, but it does. My first thriller. And then after that, it was like full on, no romance. It's just about murders and all that stuff. And I really like it. I've always actually liked doing very different things, because even though the Side Changing series and the Guild Hunter series, like I said, they're on the continuum because, it's created worlds and world building and all that stuff, they're very different. They're very, very different worlds. That there is no overlap. And that's always been important to me, that if I am doing two projects, I don't want to be doing samey things, because I think that's when you get like bleed over and then things start to fade into each other and then lose their identity. So I want to be doing two very different things, because even if I am not writing them at the same time, edits are going to come in. I'm going to have to look at proofs. So all of this stuff, my brain is going to need to switch back and forth. And so that's what I like about doing the thrillers too, because it's very different. I literally had to... So my first thriller I wrote without telling anyone I was doing it. Like, I didn't sell it on spec. I didn't tell my agent, because I wanted to see what this would be. I wanted to write it first, because I felt like if we sold it ahead of time, everyone would be expecting like a romantic suspense, from me. And so I just wanted it, what would this be? And can I do it? Can I do what I actually want to do, which is write a very sort of, it's based in New Zealand, my thrillers. And so I wanted to write a very atmospheric thriller based in this country, very contemporary, gritty. And so that was a challenge to my brain. And I like doing that because I like growing as a writer, because I feel like with each new thing I try, I'm learning new skills that then transfer over into all of my work. So that's how I do it. I guess I'm not doing too much at the same time. I'm trying to do different things at different parts of my career and my life. And it's always stuff I'm excited about. So I wrote a Rockstar series, and nobody saw that coming, but I just was like, I just want to write this. So I did, and it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. And I think every writer should do that. Just do stuff that excites you, even if sometimes you do it in the background because, you're already contracted or you're promised readers books. But always have the play projects, because you never know what can come out of the play projects. And you asked me a genre I would like to try, but I haven't. And I always say historical, because I'm terrible. I ancient history podcast, I will admit. I love historical type stuff, but I don't actually want to do all the research for a historical. So if I wrote a historical, it would be like a made-up history that I made up, because I can keep track of stuff I make up.
Oh, hi. That's what I did. Yeah. I basically just took a real person from history and matched him up with someone who I completely made up, who did not exist in history, and made it true when I felt like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the best of both worlds. You get the historical feel, but yeah. And this is really off topic, but one of my favorite series is the Liaden series by Sharon Lee and Steve Miller. And what they actually did was, it's like a space opera, but the Liaden people, they kind of are historical in their norms. And so it's kind of like reading Regencies in space. It's awesome. It's really, really good. So.
Oh, that's so much fun. Oh my gosh. That sounds like such a blast. Give me like all those petticoats, but floating around in zero gravity. That sounds like a ball. I've been just dipping my toe back into the Side Changeling saga because it's been a while just to prepare for this interview. And I wanted to ask you, I know you have a lot of sort of your own world building mythology going on in both that and the Guild Hunter series, but is there any world mythology from anywhere that you like to include or get inspiration from, and what are you most drawn to?
I generally don't write like that. I think because I came from, I don't know, science fiction and fantasy, like I tend to come at it from the concept of what if questions. So the what if we could telepath? Like I could do this podcast by telepathy with you and we could somehow record it, you know? Or what if we were not the most powerful beings on the planet, and what if there was archangels accepted and then there were vampires as well, and what if the angels and the vampires were somehow connected and nobody actually knew? And so it's those kinds. I really begin with what if questions, and that's where my world building comes in. And I suppose I am a citizen of the world, so I don't know if there's things going in that is influencing how I, world build. So obviously I have used real world elements, not so much in building the world or the history, but making them part of it. So in the Guild Hunter series, for example, there's one book, there's a lot of scenes set in the Forbidden City in China, which I visited and I just thought was astonishing. It's the most amazing architecture and literally a city within a city. And I thought, I have to put this in a book one day, somewhere, somehow. And it was just perfect for when I came to write the Guild Hunter series. It's absolutely perfect. It's a ruling archangel. That's where she kind of has her throne at that point in time. And so I'll do stuff like that. Like I'll use real world things within the world I've constructed, because both of my series are alternate worlds as opposed to full-on fantasy world building, which I think is different. I think when you do full-on fantasy world building, there's a more reliance on mythology and things because you're creating like a whole planet. Whereas me, I'm just tweaking our world. I'm like, what if we changed just this one element? What would that do to us? And what's the ripple effect? And yeah, I find that really fun.
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about Side Changeling, but I just want to know where that idea came from, because it's such a unique idea and it's such an iconic series.
So Side Changeling, I've always been fascinated by the human mind. I did a science fair project, I think when I was 15 or 16, and it was on telepathy. And I made my friends do that test, where you put like a shield between two people and they hold up the cards and see how many people get the other card and all that kind of stuff. And I read all the books about it, and I don't think my science teacher was very impressed because I did it on telepathy. But I liked it.
Well, you use the scientific method.
So I just always have had a fascination with the human mind. And I think it grew out of that because, like I said, the question was, what if we could telepath? Or what if we had true psychic abilities? Not just, I think I kind of know something, but you know something. Like you truly see the future, or you truly can teleport yourself, any of these things. And then I thought, then the next question is, but what's the cost of that? Like, if you have that much mental power, it's not a free gift kind of thing. And so what if it drives you insane? Like, what would you do to survive? And so that's the genesis of the Side Changeling series. And honestly, that's about as far as I can go in the breakdown, because what happened next was I just sat down and obsessively wrote this book. And it was like years and years of world building in my head just came out, and I couldn't type fast enough. And I think 3 weeks around working, I basically just wrote and wrote, and I had a full draft at the end of it. And I'm actually a very messy first draft writer. Because I like to get the story out, and I'm just trying to tell myself. So it's not it's not pretty. I don't pretty up my draft as I go. I just want the whole thing. It's like I call it a skeleton draft, and then I put in all the narrative and all that kind of stuff. But this particular book, it came out almost in the form it went out on submission with. So it didn't need that much revision from me, which is really unusual. And even when it went into edits, it didn't need a massive number of edits, because I think it was one of those stories which is like a gift to a writer. It just comes out because I had been thinking about these concepts for so long, and my brain had started putting the pieces together. Like at the same time I was reading a lot of shapeshifter books, because obviously I'm a fan of the genre, but I was really annoyed that nobody was happy to be a shapeshifter. So, like, it was, everyone was like, oh no, the moon, and I'm shape-shifting, and it's terrible. And I was like, well, who says it has to be painful, like, blood and gore? And who says I would like to be a wolf, like, wandering around, being all wolfy, or like a leopard? Or, like, I just wrote the Falcon book, so, like, I would like to fly.
Can we get a little more positivity here?
Exactly. And so yeah, I put that all in a book, or my brain did, and I just I just loved it. I just loved that entire writing process, and I still remember to this day like how I was sitting there just going. And my readers have heard this before, but I was working in Japan at the time, so I would stop at 7:00 because that's when the English language news was on, and at that time I wasn't fluent enough to listen to the Japanese language news, and I would eat peanut butter toast, and then the news was on for like half an hour, I think, and then after that I would just write again obsessively until I fell into bed, and next day go to work, come home, write, stop for the news, peanut butter toast, write obsessively, on repeat. I ate peanut butter toast for like 3 weeks while I'm writing this book. I love peanut butter toast to this day. It's like good memories.
It's a comfort food.
Yes, it's so good. It brings back all those memories. And Slave to Sensation is such a defining book in my career. It really took my career to the next level, and it just showed me that this is what I'm meant to be doing. Like, it felt so good to be writing it. And at the time I was having trouble selling any more books to my contemporary publisher, the Desires, like I mentioned, the categories. And it's not my fault, it's not their fault. I just wasn't the right writer for that line. I love the books I wrote, but they were all a little bit left of center if you look at the categories that were coming out at the time. And so I think this was where I was meant to be. I was meant to be doing the weird books, like the making up stuff books. So yeah.
I love that, and I think that we've done a few episodes and interviews with authors now across this romance novel book club series that we're doing. And one of the defining sort of arcs that has really held true is so many authors who have longevity in their careers hit a space like that where, like, you can't sell anything or something doesn't do well and you just have to push through and keep going. The resilience that this career requires is huge.
Oh, absolutely. I think you can't be a writer, like a working writer over a long period, unless you have that resilience, because even if you're lucky enough to be successful, and I'm always very humbled that I'm still able to have this career, that readers of reading my work. There's never a guarantee, because each book is its own thing. It's not like you can rely on all the previous books. People are reviewing each book and reading each book whether they like it, and so you have to have that resilience for that, and also because the writing process is, unless you're co-writing, you're on your own, right? Like, it has to come from within, the grit to keep going. It's nobody standing there telling you to write the next chapter. Like, the book is due when it's due, whether you're self-published or traditionally published. I mean, if you've put a pre-order up as a self-published author and you don't deliver, you're going to annoy your readers and they're going to stop trusting you, right? So it doesn't matter how you publish. You have to be the one to have the drive to write the book. It's on your shoulders to do it. And I think it comes down to having a passion for it. I think it would be really difficult to do this career if you didn't enjoy it at the heart of it. Obviously, there's things everyone likes more and people like less, and it's different for everyone. Like, I love edits. That, like, I love playing with, but like, my friends are like, oh my God, my ears are bleeding because I've got to do edits, like they're so stressed. And meanwhile, like, I'm like, oh, edits. But at the end of it, it comes down to you as a writer. Yeah, resilience is really important. And I think if there's any sort of newer writers listening to this, I would say to also trust your voice. I think that's really important, particularly in the current world where it's so easy to have a lot of other voices come into your work. Because, like, it's easy to put stuff out there and say, oh, what do you think? And then people are very well-meaning and they'll give you advice. But if you try and follow everyone's advice, you end up with what I call beige books, which is like, it has no voice. It's beige, It's not going to make anybody deliriously happy. It's not going to make anybody enraged. It's just going to be fine. So, yeah. You have to trust your voice. I think it's hard because everybody's like, oh no, I mean, I see sometimes writers saying, oh my God, I got my first 1-star review and it's so terrible. What should I do? What should I change? I'm like, nothing. Someone will always 1-star books. Go and look at the reviews of your favorite books of all time, and I will bet you there are 1-star reviews. It is a fact of life. So, trust in your voice.
It is so true. Yeah, it is so true. I have romance novels that I think are just absolutely exquisitely written, like the perfect romance novel. I've seen some scathing reviews of those, and I'm sure that is not fun for the author, but for me it's a little comforting because I'm like, look, even the pinnacle of romance novels that are among my favorites, someone hates that one. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's good to ground yourself like that because it's easy to get in the headspace of, oh, nobody likes me, especially when you're new. And then later, just don't read reviews, people. Much, much better for your mental health. It's not for you. It's not for you.
Which do you find harder or easier to write, your Psy or Changeling characters?
It just depends on the character, to be honest. Because I like writing them both. Like, I don't have a favorite type of character to write, but yeah, it really depends on the characters. I would have said the Psy, because the Psy are quite, particularly if you know the setup of the series, they've been conditioned to not have emotion as a way to control their psychic abilities. So that's the setup. And so, for example, when I'm writing the Psy arrows, who are like the elite Black Ops soldiers, they are basically like robots, like they are. I don't have emotions. What are you talking about? And it's very blank. And so trying to get into their heads is really hard sometimes because it took me an entire book, for example, to get to know one of them. And then I went and rewrote the whole book from the start again because, I finally know this person. But at the same time, some of the changelings they seem really open, but then it can be a mask as well. It can be a facade to hide this really, all the emotional intensity that's going on under the surface. So, it really, really depends on the characters. And I've had Psy characters who have just been like, just a dream. Like I knew them straight away and I was like, oh, I know what's going on with you. I know your head. And then I've had others who are like, nope, I got nothing for you. You just write my book without knowing anything whatsoever about myself. So no, it's good fun. I actually enjoy doing both. And like I said, I like having that flexibility, and I like doing different books that focus on different parts of the world. So yeah.
What's your strategy when you encounter a character who just doesn't want to play?
So when I started writing, I did it quite a lot in isolation. So I learned a lot of stuff by myself. And then when I finally found a writers group, the Romance Writers of New Zealand, which is amazing, by the way, I went to these talks and stuff, and I started learning things. And one of the things people often talked about was a way to get to know your characters was to interview them. Like you're an interviewer and you have all these questions. And I thought, that sounds very sensible. I should try that. So I tried it. It's a horrible, horrible failure. because I just don't write in a sensible way. So none of these sensible things work for me. I just have to write the book. I just sit down and write. And like I said, I write whole books where all I'm doing is getting to know people. And what I said about the messy first draft is that I don't judge anything that comes out of me in the first draft. It's just like, it is what it is. And sometimes all it says is something explodes here. And that's the chapter, because something has to explode there. And that's good fun. But yeah, I write my way into my characters. However long it takes, if it takes 6 drafts, it takes 6 drafts to get to all the emotional layers. Quite happy to do that because, like I said, I like editing. I like revising. I like moving pieces around. I like to get to know people like an onion, peel away each layer. So, yeah, that's how I do it. Nothing sensible.
That sounds about right, really. What is sensible about being a writer? I don't know.
Yeah. I was just thinking how I don't really know a character until like everything before the first 50,000 words. I usually wind up cutting anyway because it's like, oh, now I finally know what your voice is and what you want to do.
I think you have to be, when you write like this, you have to be comfortable with losing words when it's necessary, because I wrote a book 70,000, I was like, no, now I have to start again, and I start again. I always keep them because I always have this hope that I'm magically going to be able to use a chapter and put it, I rewrite the whole thing, but I like having the safety of having my words just in case. But yeah, I think it's fine. I think once you get to grips with the fact that sometimes writing a really good book means going back and not using those earlier words, that's another skill you learn along the way.
Absolutely. And it's comforting to hear all that, just because I'm writing a draft as well, that I'm just like, well, we'll see what people think of this. After having gone through a whole career where with my debut novel, this was the case, but it was also the case I did a lot of commercial writing prior. I was a copywriter for a number of years, and what you do is you get it absolutely perfect before anybody sees it. And the first draft is the most polished draft. And I'm getting the sense that is not how it is with fiction writing.
No. I think some people are. Like, I have friends who are like, and I don't want to say everybody writes like me. I have friends who literally write a page, completely fix the page, then write the next page, completely fix it. And they're planners. They plan the whole book out. So they already have like a chart of exactly where they're going. And by the end of their draft, their book is perfect because they've done fixing all along. But, it takes us the same amount of time to write the book. They spend their time on the planning process that I'm doing my wild first drafting to figure out the story. So I think in the creative field, there's not really rules as such as on how you write. You just have to figure out what works for you as a writer.
Yeah, and also this process is not linear, it would be great if I could just say, right, I'm going to write 1,500 words every day, and then that'll get me to the end. But then you write those 1,500 words a day, and you figure out that you didn't know your character at all, and then you have to start over.
Yeah.
You're consistently an author who puts out at least 2 books a year, sometimes more. What is your secret to juggling, particularly in the Side Changeling and the Guild Hunter? Those worlds are quite vivid, quite expansive. What's your secret to writing so many multiple projects and building those worlds?
I think it's how I came into writing. So in my past life, I was a lawyer. So I was writing all through university, and I was writing when I was a young lawyer. And obviously I was writing in high school. But these later years, I really had to use my time very, very wisely because I had very little of it. So when you're in law school, you're reading like pages, like hundreds and thousands of words of case law, right? So there's a lot of, and you're making briefs and all that kind of stuff. It's very text intensive. And so the little time I had to write, I would just write. Like I would just go into that headspace and go, and if I had 20 minutes, I used to write on the bus in my notebook, and I would just transcribe it at home when my brain was too fried to do creative work because I was tired. And so I think that actually helped me in the long term because it made me quite focused when I write. I actually, funnily enough, and this happens to a lot of writers who go full-time, I actually lost a little bit of that when I went full-time because I suddenly had all this time and I didn't know what to do with myself because I was like, oh, I've got whole days to write this book. That means I must write it in the last month. Because
Hi, I know that feeling.
yeah. Don't worry, you'll get over it. After the first insane deadline, you're like, what am I doing? And I went back to the skills I had learned and, really knuckled down. And I don't like that end of the book rush. I really don't. I don't feel like I enjoy the process. I was never the kid that studied really last minute for exams because it just stresses me out. I would rather spread my study over a period, and I write the same way. Like I have a schedule, and it's not I'm very flexible. Like, for example, I know that Christmas shopping is going to be crazy, right? So I will go in the weekday when people are working, I'll go do my groceries or whatever. So I'm not with the crowds. And then I'll just make up my work in the evening. So I have that flexibility. But what I like to do is say every day, this is how many words I want to write, or this is how many pages I want to edit. I don't do it on time because I think it's really easy to fritter away time. But if it's a solid goal of what you want the book progression to be, it's very easy to judge. Have I done my 3,000 words, or have I edited my 20 pages, whatever I've set? And I have a little book that I do my daily sort of, like bullet journaling, but I don't really do the proper bullet journaling.
I just like to see the stuff. Like, I love the homemade graph progression of like some aspects of bullet journaling. I just need to see the increase and that like it's actually working and it's going to end one day, maybe.
Yeah. Whatever works for you, like I have friends who use sticker charts because they're happy to have their stickers for finishing their. So yeah, for me, it's about that. Like I try and I work backwards from deadlines and work out what will make me feel good to be at this point in the progress. And also the deadlines are not set for me. We negotiate them. They're like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what do you want? And I made mistake as a young writer, so I will share it with you. So you also do not make this mistake. So like the first book, I had ages to write it, right? And edit it because nothing was due. I didn't realize when I was setting the dates for like my second one that, I'm going to getting copy edits coming in. Revisions are going to come in. Proofs are going to come in. All that stuff needs time in your schedule. So you can't assume you need the same amount of time to write the second book that you did the first book, because there's going to be other stuff in between that you're going to be doing. So I think all that takes a little bit of learning as you're going along. And these days I'm aware of what I can do, and I know when I'm going to be traveling and how much leeway I'm going to need. And I do think I'm slowing down a little bit, but that's okay, because it's just a time of not as young as I used to be. So sad to say. But yeah. So I think it's a good idea to just break things down. It just makes it so much easier in bite-sized chunks, and then not obsess over, oh my God, I have a whole book due. It's like, well, this week I have a chapter due to myself that I would like to finish writing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my things that I do as well, is just make sure that I have something to do each day that is a manageable thing.
Yeah. And I think that's the word you use, manageable, is really important. I think quite often we put too many things on our to-do list. And that took me a long time to learn, because then you're just depressed because you never get through your to-do list. So I read, I wish I could remember which book this was, but I read like a sort of productivity type book years ago. And one of the things he said in there was, you need to put everything down that you're doing. So if you have to do laundry, you put down that you have to do laundry, because that takes time, right? If you've got children that you have childcare or you're picking them up from school, you put all that down. So you can see all the things you're actually doing in the day that's taking your time. And that actually gives you a better idea of how much time you actually have to write in the day, or whatever it is you're doing, whatever project. And that I find really useful as well.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of that. I kind of like call it reverse time blocking, where I like, there's a really great app for other people like me who are ADHD. It was designed by an ADHD person called Structured. A friend of mine told me about it. And it lets you sort of like block out your time. Now, I hate seeing blocks of my time like being chunked out like that. Like it actually gives me hives. But what I do is I try and like set myself a Pomodoro task, and then it automatically goes in there as being like, oh, you did that time. That's fine. And I can kind of like see what's going on and block out my time better. Otherwise, you know, it's like you said, you've got an ocean of time to get this done. No one's pushing you. And then you only do the work in the last 2 weeks and want to scream.
What are some of your favorite tropes in romance? And are there any from other genres that you feel play really well in romance or vice versa?
Ooh, my favorite tropes. What are my favorite tropes? I like a lot of them. I can tell you what my most disliked trope is, which is the secret baby.
Oh, tell me more.
You know, I have friends who write very good books and they write secret baby books. And I'm like, I love you, but I can't read this particular book. So that's fine.
Can you explain to our readers what exactly the secret baby trope is?
Oh, well, it's basically like, you know, there's a pregnancy and the heroine decides not to tell the father for whatever reason. And I'm like, it has to be like a supremely good reason for me to buy into it. Like at one time, I think she was in a crash and she lost her memory. And so I was like, okay, that's I can buy that. That's okay. And he had to convince her he was her husband and make her fall in love with it, right? Like, so that worked. But if it was just like, oh, we had a fight and it was a terrible fight and I decided that I'm not going to tell you about the baby. And then I'm like, oh, well, you know, I'm not buying that there.
I always feel like this is what's making the drama. Like, I have this hard line with Jenny and romance novels in general where I'm like, I'm here for all the disconnects. I'm here for all the bad communication. But when you get to a point where it's just like, you people are not being too stupid to live, just to function, like, I can't. I'm out.
We've had so many now conversations about this, and I love that you took it immediately to what the tropes you don't like are, because usually people want to talk about the tropes they do like. And I've kind of learned to say, and I do feel this way, that like most tropes, even if they're ones I think I don't like, in the right hands, I can get behind that, you know? But like, I'm not a kid person. Like, I'm just not, I don't enjoy children. Like, I realize how this sounds, but like, I don't think children are particularly romantic. So like, if there's a baby, I don't need to see it. It can happen in the future.
I think the reason I went to what I don't like is because I mostly like most of the tropes. What I have realized over the years is that I really like when there's some kind of family or brotherhood or sisterhood or some kind of thing where the characters are not isolated. So it took me a long time to figure out that I like writing this as well as reading it. So I really like that sort of interconnected friendship group or the family you're born into or the family you choose, whatever it is, you know, but I really like that. And I think that's not genre specific. That goes across multiple genres. Like you see this a lot in science fiction, sort of adventure type books. You see this in military, tribe stories, historicals, you know, you've got The Village. I think that one is one that goes across genres, and whether you like it or not is, you know, totally your taste. And I really, really enjoy that. I do like that interconnected, I don't know, what do you call it? I just use family as a shorthand, but
it's like found family, you know, like I think that's a trope. I think you can see that in your work too, because like the changeling society and like shifter societies in general, there's this concept of a pack.
Yeah, so I obviously wrote that for a long time, and then someone said, and so Nalini, what is the foundational theme or whatever of what you write? And I was like, I don't know. And then they told me, so I was like, this is true.
I love when that happens.
Yeah, so I often find if I'm having real trouble with a book or a story, it's because I've isolated the characters too much. Because for me, we learn so much about people from who they are with other people as well. And so that's how I write.
I remember, I don't think you were in this class with me, but I remember there was some fiction professor who's like, fiction really enjoys triangles. Like triangles create a lot of tension and conflict, not just romance, but like in rooms, when you're speaking, when you're having conversations, and people behave differently in sort of odd numbered groups, particularly groups of 3, than they do in like, one-on-one. So if you're ever like, oh, I can't get a sense of the scene, sometimes introducing a chaos character will help you get there, even if you cut them.
Jen and I went to college together and we're both creative writing majors. What this is reminding me of is the infamous banquet scene where I'm just like, oh God, there's like 7 characters and they all have an agenda. And I'm just like, gosh, I have a few of those that I wrestled with for years. Let's talk smut a little bit. What are some of your favorite sex tropes? And not to yuck anyone's yum, but are there any that are turnoffs?
You mean like in a love scene, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
I've never really thought of them as tropey because I tend to write, like, my characters talk a lot. Or like things happen. And so one of the things I learned, and I think this was Angela Knight, she did a talk. And she said a love scene should serve the same function as any other scene in the book, which is it moves the story forward, it moves the story backward, or, it messes things up, or it does something. And so I've always just treated any kind of love scene, sex scene, as a scene. So I tend not to think of them as trope-tastic, it's just like, how are they going to screw it up? Or, oh no, this is the happy sex, like this is the resolution, it's, yeah.
Yeah, is this an angsty sex scene or a happy sex scene, like a reward for all the hardship you've gone through kind of sex scene?
Yeah, like, I've done all the brutal stuff. Now it's like, okay, is this a calm before the storm, or is this the final calm kind of thing? And I suppose I'm not really an erotic romance writer. Like, I have love scenes and things. So I think if you're writing erotic romance, then more the tropey stuff would probably come in. I used to read my friend Maya Banks's books, and she was like, I learned things, okay? I learned things. My innocent little mind. So I'm pretty open to reading all that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. So yeah.
Filing that one away for later. I have so many authors like that for me where I'm just like, gosh, I should be taking notes. This is amazing.
I mean, some people are just really, really good at writing sensuality. And I think there's some really good, erotic romance writers. And it is a skill. Not everyone can do it. I think a lot of people think they could. But it's really hard because it's an erotic romance. So you have to have the romance element of it as well. It's not just, slot A into tab B kind of thing. It's all multiple slots into multiple tabs. But
you get into like monster romance and shifter romance and wide shoes, and suddenly it's like lots of slots, lots of holes, lots of tabs.
Yeah, that's right.
The importance in all sex scenes, like Nalini said, are that they function just as well as all other scenes, whether or not they are tropey and are 2 people, 1 bed or whatever. Like, they have to move the story forward or pull it out of the place it was going before or something. Otherwise, they're just gratuitous.
I don't object to gratuitous sex. I mean, I think that's fine. You can really tell the romance writers in the room, because I have a lot of friends who are sort of more mainstream fiction writers who are just appalled at the idea of writing like a sex scene that has all the sex in it. And I'm just like, well, that's my favorite thing to write. Like, I'm just like getting through the rest of this, just dying for these people to have sex.
So what type of scenes do you prefer to write? Sex scenes or fight scenes? And which one is more difficult?
Ooh, honestly, like, I'm sorry to go back to it really depends on the book and the characters. Like, I wrote a book with a bear shifter hero, bear changeling. Super sexy. Like, he's just all out there. He's doing the dirty talk. He's into it. It was, so easy. And then you have some characters who are just like, again, very closed off, and it's really hard to get into the flow of, because these are who they are as people. And so it's going to take a lot of time for them to warm up. And then with some characters, the fight scenes are like way easier because they're there. They'll do the fight scene. No problem. Cut off heads if necessary, just full on hardcore fight scene. And then, so yeah, it really just depends on the character. And sometimes, honestly, it depends on my mood as a writer. Like, sometimes I just want to punch people, and then it's much easier to write the fight scene that day.
It's like, where's my headspace at today? Am I a lover or a fighter mentally?
Yeah. And I think what you said, Jenny, about it not being a linear process is important because, yeah, sometimes I do leave gaps saying, you know, a fight scene has to go in here, or I want this type of love scene, like we're talking about. I want these things to happen in this love scene, but I'm not in the headspace to write it, or I don't know the characters well enough to write it yet. So most of the time, I think we tend to think of fight scenes as more physical scenes. And sometimes they are just physical scenes. But sometimes a fight scene can also be quite an emotional scene. So, for example, if you have two brothers on opposite sides of a battle and they come face to face, that is not a physical scene only. That is a very emotional scene as well. And so that can be quite intense to write as well. So it also depends on the type of scene it is. Within those two scenes, there's subsets of scenes you can do. So I really like writing the sort of fight scenes that also have another layer to them. I think it makes them even more interesting. Some of the more fun ones I've written is when Elena and Raphael in the Guild Hunter series, they're having a sparring session. And obviously they're together, right? And so they're flirting the whole way through when they're having this, and at the same time they're trying to kick each other and, you know, like not hurt each other, but they're having fun. They're trying to make this a hard battle, but they're flirting the entire time. And so I like writing those kind of scenes as well. It's really fun. It's a different kind of fight scene.
I love those scenes.
Those are so fun to write and so fun to read, like flirty fight scenes. I love that. It's great when it's in an enemies to lovers context, too.
Because it's that balance, right? How quickly it could go from, like, fighting to fucking. So you're just watching it happen and you're like, yes, this is great. This is just the best tension the whole time.
Yeah. They're really fun because the whole time you're like, we're all smiling right now. Like, we're like, oh.
Yeah. Like, you just want to see it end in some wrestling. That's what.
Yeah. It's a Bollywood movie called Jodha Akbar. It's like an old sweeping historical in the time of the Mughal Empire and stuff. But anyway, there's one scene where they've had an arranged marriage, and there's one scene where they have a sword fight. The sexual tension in that scene, it's like, oh my god. And it's that fight scene, I think, is even on YouTube, and it's just, I'm like, oh, so well done. It's like, it's like those period historicals where he touches her hand as he's going into the carriage or something, and they're just like, such restraint.
Yeah, the restraint, that's what it is. We were talking about this with somebody about how in some books and in some scenes, you know, the touch of the hand, or he smiles at her and suddenly it's like, that's what you've been waiting for the whole time, you know, like this little gesture of feeling, like where it's like, oh gosh. And that could like play the role that a sex scene plays in a different book, you know?
This episode will drop in January, so Slave to Sensation will have a new cover, and I will make sure we put that out with this as well.
That is, I believe, the seminal original Psy Changeling book, right? The one from 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, we don't need to out everyone's age here. I remember working on that book.
Did you really? I didn't realize that.
I think so, yeah. I remember when they were buying those books.
Crazy.
I remember doing the accordion selling materials for it. Like, yeah, it was big when it was coming through. It was exciting. People keep telling us, you must read Nalini Singh. You must tell everyone about her because she's just such a master in this craft. So I'm thrilled that we're going to get a chance to do that on the podcast. This will drop in January. Is there anything that you want to promote or tell people about?
So coming next is Archangel's Ascension, which is the 17th Guild Hunter book. So the series is sort of going to come to a close soon, which is very sad, but it is time. And yeah, this book is one that a lot of people have been waiting for, so I hope they enjoy it. And then after that, I have Atonement Sky, which is the next Psy Changeling book. And I am currently, as in today, I am finishing the thriller that's due. So I'm not sure what the release date for that will be, but so look out for another dark and mysterious thriller from me as well.
Do you have a title for that yet, or are you still not sure?
No, still not sure on that. So I keep putting different titles in and not quite. So we'll see. I might talk to my editor about that one and see which one speaks more to people. The interesting thing is there are some good titles I'd love to use, but a lot of other thriller writers already thought of that. So there's lots of people with the same title. So I have to come up with something new.
And for our listeners who love thrillers, Nalini's are so evocative of New Zealand, and they're really, really good, and you should give them a try. They're different from her romances, but they're equally great reads.
Oh, thank you.
So where can people find you online, Nalini?
So my website, nalinisingh.com, is the best starting place. We try and keep that. It's very regularly updated. So there's all the release news is on there. There's also a bunch of free short stories you can read if you want to try out my writing style, anything like that. And if you are a reader of my books, I would strongly suggest you join my newsletter, which comes out once a month, unless there's breaking news, like new covers, anything like that. And I try to do free short stories in that a few times a year. And if I don't manage it a few times a year, I'll just do them all at the end of the year. So you get your free stories. Those two places are really good. And I am active on Facebook on my author page, author Nalini Singh. I do have an Instagram with the same handle, but I just haven't been as active recently. But I do pop in and out every so often. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been fabulous.
No, this has been really good. I really enjoyed talking to you both.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you whenever we see you next.
Grown-ups, if there's a child in your life who is interested in, curious about, or fascinated by people and places from history, then my podcast, The Past and the Curious, might just be a hit in your home. From the invention of microscopes to world-traveling dogs to fashions of the 1890s, gold rush ghost towns, and audiences going wild for walking competitions, we've got a little bit of it all. Hosted by children's author and museum educator Mick Sullivan, that's me. The show is fun, funny, engaging, honest, and beloved by kids and parents alike. Find The Past and the Curious at all the usual podcast places.